Hi everyone! So it has been quite a few weeks since I recorded my last Witcher Netflix related video. I have to say the state of the world these past few weeks has just been a little crazy. At the time of recording this video, I am currently staying at home for the indefinite future based on the current COVID coronavirus things that have been happening in the world. So I just hope that anybody who is watching this, that you're staying safe and staying healthy and doing okay mentally, because I know this can be very taxing on people in physical and mental ways. So hope you guys are all doing okay. That being said, I still did want to make a video talking about some of my predictions and some of my thoughts based on things that have been announced in the past few months of Witcher Netflix Season 2. So the month of February had a lot of big announcements for Season 2 of the show, and unfortunately this month, the month of March, there were some not so good announcements. First of all, you may have seen already online that they did halt the production of Season 2 of The Witcher Netflix because of the coronavirus concerns, which absolutely was the right call to make. Secondly, you may have seen that one of the actors who will be in Season 2, Christopher Hivju, who was also Tormund in Game of Thrones, he got casted to play Nivellen in Season 2 of The Witcher Netflix, and there was news recently that he tested positive for coronavirus, which is horrible thing to hear, and hope that he's doing well and on his way to recovery right now as we speak. But yeah, this month was definitely a lot of more serious and sad news for The Witcher Netflix, but I still did want to try to cover some of the things that I think will be happening for Season 2. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into my thoughts about what we are going to see based on what we know, based on my predictions, trying to piece these two things together and form some conclusions on what Season 2 of The Witcher Netflix is going to look like. So I felt Season 2 would probably be launching in around the same time of year that Season 1 launched. So my original thought was December 2021 was when we were going to see Season 2 of The Witcher Netflix. With the halt of production due to COVID-19, I don't know if that will be delayed or not. It's honestly like there hasn't been any updates, and it's too early, I think, to tell, and it's too uncertain about how long this is all going to last for us to have a clear picture, clear idea of if this is going to like majorly delay into 2022 or not. So honestly, at the time of filming this, we just don't know. So we'll see how things pan out in the next few months. But now let's talk about the actual content that I think is going to be in the actual Season 2. And let me put out a disclaimer before we continue any further. I will be discussing some minor spoilers for the books of The Witcher. So if you're somebody who does not like spoilers, who hasn't read the books, who wants to keep all caution, might want to keep that in mind when watching. Further on, there will be some spoilers. I'm not going to spoil entire storylines here, but I will be mentioning characters and little things that you may consider a spoiler. So naturally, we all are probably thinking, Season 1 had most of the short stories, and most of the story took place within the two books, The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny, which are what I call the prequel books to the main Witcher saga. So naturally, you would think that Season 2 would start with the saga, which would be the first book, Blood of Elves, and maybe a little bit of Time of Contempt, but probably mostly Blood of Elves. However, we have learned a few things that makes me think they're still going to be pulling some stories from The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny and maybe incorporating that into this season. So as I mentioned, Christopher Hivju, and I'm sorry if I totally mispronounce his name, I sometimes just call him Tormund. He has been confirmed to be casted as Nivellen, who is a monster creature that Geralt encounters in the short story in Season 1. So in the story, A Grain of Truth, Geralt meets Nivellen, who is this monster-like creature, and the story, like many other stories in The Witcher, kind of derives some things from fairy tales, and this one in particular is kind of a Beauty and the Beast story with a very dark twist. I didn't expect them to go back to this story because it is in the first book, and of course, like the first season was very timey-wimey, and the timeline was kind of all over the place. But in the short stories, the timeline is also all over the place. But one thing we know for certain is that Geralt and Ciri have reunited in the show. So naturally, I would have thought the next step would to be for Geralt and Ciri to go to Kaer Morhen, because that's what happens in the beginning of Blood of Elves. So where does the Nivellen story go in this timeline? Well, I have two thoughts that I think would be the case here. One, I think that the Nivellen story is going to be very different from the book, and that Geralt and Ciri, maybe on their way, Geralt and Ciri reunite and they're traveling to Kaer Morhen, and this is where they encounter Nivellen and his mansion, and we learn this whole story. That's what seems to be more of the likely thing here. However, it could also be that we get into this weird timeline thing again with the show, and we get some flashback of Geralt alone on his journey and where he does encounter Nivellen, because that's a little more accurate to what the book is. That Geralt was not with Ciri when all of this stuff happens. So what do I think about this story being in the show? I think it's cool. I think it's a good story, and I very much liked it. I think it would have fit better in season 1 as an extra episode or something like that, but I guess the showrunners really wanted to have the story in the show somehow, so they're going to add it in season 2. One thing I will note about the showrunners is I think Lauren Hissrich and the rest of the crew is really good at being very aware of things in the community, and I think that they do actually listen to the community. So she has said many times that she, takes feedback that people give her, and she wants to kind of learn from the mistakes that they made in season 1 and, really come through with a strong season 2. And I that makes me, when I hear things like that, it makes me genuinely happy and makes me believe in the people who are writing the show, that they're not so like tone deaf to everything where they think what they write is perfect and golden and they don't care about what, the community says. It seems that they actually do take the things that the community says to heart, and they want to try to incorporate, changes to the show itself. I think one of those things is going to be the confusing timeline that has been probably the number one criticism of the show. I think that they're probably going to change a lot of that. They don't need to really worry about a timeline anymore because all of the characters are probably going to be meeting very soon. However, there is still other storylines to kind of follow within the saga, so I'm hoping that when they do these different storylines that they will make it clear what the pace and the timeline of the story is. I think that they're going to learn from that. But then I think early on we will actually get Ciri and Geralt to Kaer Morhen, and that's a big part of Blood of Elves, the first book, where Geralt and the Witchers are training Ciri here in the lovely land of the School of the Wolf, Kaer Morhen. So all of the Witchers have officially been casted in season 2, including our beloved Vesemir, who finally did get casted as Kim Bodnia, who will be playing Vesemir. But Eskel, Lambert, Cohen, they are all also going to be in season 2, and they've all been casted as well. So we're going to see the full Witcher lineup in this season, and I'm very, very excited to see that. So what I really hope is going to happen in season 2 is, so Ciri begins training with Geralt and Vesemir and all of the Witchers, and it's kind of an interesting it's a very interesting thing for her because she is a young girl being trained by all these rough, grueling men, and they don't really understand the side of Ciri where her feminine needs come in. Geralt decides to call in a sorceress for help, and no, he does not call Yennefer in to come help. He calls Triss, and Triss makes her way to Kaer Morhen to help these Witchers to help these Witchers with Ciri. And this is also where we kind of get a little more insight on Ciri's powers and her abilities, and having a magic user's perspective on all of the powers that she does use. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more of that as well, and get a little more insight on Ciri's powers, because we did see quite a bit of it in season 1. So I'm thinking in early season 2 we'll get more of that as well. So talking about some things that we do know based on who has already been casted for season 2, we know that Francesca Findabair is going to be in season 2, and she is a powerful sorceress, but also an elf. And she is considered the Daisy of the Valley, the Queen of Dol Blathanna, Queen of the Free Elves. And I, as you all may or may not know, I am very much a elf sympathizer in the Witcher universe, so Francesca is a very special character to me. The actress who's playing Francesca, her name is Misia Simpson. She has already made some posts on our Instagram about being hyped for everybody to meet Francesca, and she even called her the Daisy of the Valley, and so that just made my heart very happy to see that. And also the actor who played Filavandrel in season 1, we will be seeing more of Filavandrel in season 2. So in February, I saw the actor who plays Filavandrel, Tom Canton. He made a post about returning in season 2 as Filavandrel, and he was very much in character. The tweet itself said, "You underestimated our kind, humans. We're back with a vengeance." And basically pro-elf tweet, and I had to just make a quote tweet myself that I was so excited at how pro-elf he was, and he replied to it as well, and it just made my day that the Filavandrel actor noticed me. As a fellow Scoia'tael comrade, I was very, very happy to see that. The thing is, we don't actually see much of them until the second book, Time of Contempt. Filavandrel and Francesca, they have a lot more interactions and things later in the book series, and not so much in Blood of Elves. That makes me think that some of the story is going to be kind of bleeding over into Time of Contempt, and maybe Baptism of Fire, but probably mostly Time of Contempt. Also, there are some notes of new characters who have been casted that aren't in the book at all. I believe Francesca has a brother that's been casted, and we never heard of Francesca having a brother in the books at all, but there is a character who has been casted as Francesca's brother. So I think that season 1 did a good job establishing the main story of Geralt, Yen, and Ciri, but I hope season 2 really does dive more into the lore of the world of The Witcher, which would include the story of the elves. So I'm hoping season 2 really is going to dive into this deep lore that we know so well, and is one of my favorite parts of the story. This is just, this is on the right path to being something I'm going to be very happy about. Another thing that we know is that the character Lydia, who is like an assistant to Vilgefortz. Lydia plays a rather significant role in the story of Vilgefortz early on. And again, I believe she is a character who we see mostly in Time of Contempt. I don't think we see her at all in Blood of Elves. And so the fact that they've already casted Lydia and that she is going to be in season 2 means that we're probably going to see some big Vilgefortz story coming into play. So those are most of the things that we do know thus far as casting goes, and my personal predictions on what will be in the story based on these casting choices. But let's talk about the things that we don't know just yet. So Blood of Elves, the first book, has a lot of story on the nobles of the northern kingdoms. So there's a big plot going on with all of the kings and queens of the northern realms. So King Foltest, King Henselt, Queen Meve, and King Demavend, they all have a pretty big story. They all have a pretty big role to play in the first few books. And we have not yet seen any casting for these characters just yet. We did get a decent amount of the political state of the world in season 1, but honestly, The Witcher is a pretty heavily political show in general. There's so much going on between Nilfgaard and the Northern Kingdoms, and you kind of have to introduce these nobles early on in the show. My thought is maybe that might be something that comes later on in the season, and I think the first half of the season might have very heavy adventure play, and then the second half of the season might go a little more political. And other people who haven't been casted is Philippa and Dijkstra. Dijkstra and Philippa you may know from The Witcher 3. They're very important characters in The Witcher 3. They're also pretty important in the early portion of the books in Blood of Elves and Time of Contempt. And they are two characters that are personal favorites of mine in the story. I've said this before, but Philippa is one of my favorite characters in the books. I love Philippa so much. She is my favorite sorceress, and I love her. Please be in season 2. You're such an important character, and you need to have significance in this show. If for some reason they write her out as not that important of a character, I am going to riot. I really am. Other characters we have not yet heard about is Amirvar Emrys himself. He is the Emperor of Nilfgaard, and he is gonna have to show up at some point in the show. I really think that they need to introduce him in season 2. If we don't get a face to the Kingdom of Nilfgaard, we've seen Fringilla, we've seen Cahir, we need to see who's behind it all. We've already talked about the White Flame in the show. We need to see who this is. There's another character who appears in Blood of Elves that is kind of one of the main antagonists, I would say. His name is Riance, and he also has not been talked about at all yet. Riance is the main person who's kind of after Geralt in Blood of Elves, and I hope that they keep Riance as a villain in this. I don't know. We'll see if Riance does make an appearance as one of the main villains in this show in season 2. I think that he should be, and we'll see if he gets casted. So that's most of the big things that I wanted to talk about in regard to season 2. While I don't think that the show needs to be a retelling of the books, I definitely want to see some of these very important characters that are in the books become major characters in the show. So if we do get some more news in the coming months about new casting choices and things like that, I do plan to make another video and discuss some of the new news. But right now, the main focus for everything is for everybody to stay safe and to stay healthy. That is the number one thing that the entire cast, I'm wishing them all of the safety and health that they can all have. And a final note, as a little tip for people who do want to keep up with a lot of Witcher Netflix news, my number one source of all of the news and information is Redanian Intelligence. I'm sure many of you who are also big followers of the show like me, you guys also probably follow Redanian Intelligence, but for all the new people, Redanian Intelligence, they do get a lot of the really good news for The Witcher. Sometimes they post more speculative things, but they will clearly mark it as this is pure speculation. But anything that they get that's confirmed, it comes pretty fast, and it's very easy to keep up with. Thank you everybody for watching, and once again, please stay healthy, please stay safe. Love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!